And then people say, well, if only we could ban the rifle that he used. As you said, assault weapons are not used in the majority of shootings in the United States. There are some cases, no doubt, but this man in a position, I'm going to submit, he could have killed and injured many people with a bolt action rifle, a single shot bolt action rifle. He got he was able to get a lot of rounds off. But my suggestion is, had he had a decent bolt action rifle, he probably could have injured, killed many people. If you look at the Uvalde shooting, when the police are not able to get into that room for about an hour, right? Isn't that about the timeline?
They did not go in for an hour. Yeah, 58
So
minutes, I believe.
so you, what would a ban on an assault weapon, clip size, what would that have done in that case? When you have an hour to shoot at innocent victims or do whatever you intended to do to innocent victims, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the most grievous shootings, and they are horrible, and in no way are we trying to downplay them, but this emotional, oh, if we had bans on this or that, they wouldn't have happened. And it's like, oh, boy, that's just it's not reality,
It's not an
right?
honest argument. It's just not an honest argument. It's just, and again, here's what's going on in society. It's that people are trying to find something to blame. There's something wrong in our world. There's something wrong going on in our culture that's grievous and it's wrong, and everybody knows it. The question is, what's the problem? And for a worldview that does not accept the reality that man is flawed in his nature, there is sin. Man is born with a sinful nature, and his natural propensity is for evil. If you reject that, then you've got to start trying to find reasons for the evil you see in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's blame the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's blame this. Let's blame systems. Let's blame your dead grandparents, your dead
Mm-hmm.
great great grandparents. It's and it's everything is flipped on its head. This whole critical race theory and stuff uh, marginalized, and so you let the criminal go because it's a result of hereditary oppression in some sort of way,
Mm-hmm.
instead of holding the individual responsible for his own sinful behavior. So now you have the gun. Let's blame the gun. The guns are evil. No, guns are tools used by evil men. And that's what's going on. Boy, they're just struggling with the whole concept of man being a sinner.
Yeah. No, you're right. What about Australia? Australia is often used as an example of a country that forced citizens, most citizens, to give up weapons. And the murder rate did drop in Australia. If the statistics I found are accurate, the US has a murder rate of about 6.3 per 100,000 people. 6.3 per 100,000 over the nation as a whole. And the US is about 20th on the list. Australia is about zero point 0.9 per 100,000. So
So what
let's say,
about 6 times more?
yeah, six times, about six times. So you say, well, James, look what Australia did. Why wouldn't you be for that? Why wouldn't you be for taking away guns to reduce the murder rate?
Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah.
Again, first of all, the I don't believe the stats. I don't believe numbers as much as I believe just what I see in common sense. Let me give you a quick example. They say that inflation is at 9.1%, right, in
Uh-huh.
our country.
Yeah.
Anyone who has half a brain knows that your gas went up more than 9.1%.
They don't count that in some of the inflation statistics.
Well, whatever you want to do, whether it's bacon, whether it is ham, whether it's hamburgers, whether it's shrimp, whether it's you name it, the staples and most staples
Mhm.
that you use every day is going up more than
Oh yeah.
9.1%
Yeah,
in the
no, I
last
know.
2 years. So
Right.
I don't 9.1. Where are you getting that from? I don't trust it. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't trust Australia because once you've taken away guns, you now have an incentive to manipulate the numbers. So that's one. So that's one. Two is two. Total different tack. There are too many guns and bullets in the United States of America for me to turn in my gun and now trust the policeman.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
doing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to trust Lori Lightfoot to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Even though we live out in the suburbs, Arlington Heights to Palatine to Schaumburg, Calvin, they're a far cry from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that the police are necessarily, it's the politicians who put the handcuffs on the police.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Oh yeah.
police who are told to stand down.
Right. Oh yeah.
You think I'm now going to trust a politician in the
Yeah.
United States of America to keep me safe?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care what statistics you throw up at me.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. No.
Here's an interesting thing I did see. Australia, it does have a lower murder rate. It has twice the rate of sexual assault as the US. Isn't that interesting? So, although perhaps the gun violence is lower, and it is. I mean, it's lower. What the exact rate is, I don't know. But that doesn't mean Australia is now just this
No
paradise
violence.
of
Yeah. It's no
with
violence.
no violence.
Yeah.
Interesting. In 2020, El Paso, Texas, pretty big city, saw a 71% decrease in gun homicides. The murder rate in El Paso went from 5.2 to 1.5 per 100,000. Des
What happened?
Moines, I don't know entirely. I don't know. Des Moines, Iowa, saw an increase of 175%. Chicago had an increase of 54%, 2019 to 2020. My point is, you know what? Rates can fluctuate. Houston has a lower murder rate than Chicago. Are we to conclude that guns are easier to get in Chicago than Houston?
Or maybe guns are more prolific in Texas if people are afraid to shoot because everybody got guns.
Well,
Um,
there is, but I mean, does Chicago and Rockford both have higher murder rates than Dallas and Houston?
and you know it's easier to get a gun in Texas than it is Illinois.
Well, that my point is you cannot just correlate
No.
gun violence and access to guns. It just it doesn't doesn't. I mean, Houston is not entirely a peaceful city,
Yeah.
but it's almost the same size as Chicago, James.
I think they're number 4 on the list.
Um,
3.
oh yeah, and they're catching up
Mhm.
to Chicago, especially as people are fleeing Chicago to go down to Texas.
Yeah.
So it's not like Houston doesn't have any crimes or murder, but it is a lower rate than Chicago, right? Here is an interesting thing. They passed a crime bill in Illinois that is going to be disastrous starting in
They, they
2023.
they can't implement that, Calvin. There's no way you're gonna convince me. I,
What do you mean implement it?
isn't that isn't that part of the
Oh
no
yeah,
cash
it's
bail
going
and
it's
stuff?
starting January 2023, James. The only way it's going to stop? The only way it's going to stop is if Pritzker and the Democrats lose enough. The Democrat state's attorney from Will County was warning about it. Now, Will County is a fairly large county, but nothing in comparison to Crook County. But the Democrat there is saying there are going to be murderers in our jails who are set free.
Calvin,
And
that can't happen. This can't happen,
if
Calvin.
that's happening in Will County, guess what's going to happen in Crook County? How many people are going to be released? I saw a statistic. I would have to check down. About 80 people have been killed by criminals who have been set free on just like these cash bail programs. The little slap on the wrist. And now I don't think they were guilty of murder the first time necessarily, but they were guilty of something that was, they should have been locked up. Obviously, the fact that in this case, 80 of them went on to commit murder. These are not, peaceful people.
Yeah, they didn't go to jail for jaywalking.
No, right, yeah, they were not. Or for marijuana, whatever. I mean, these are, I think, are more serious issues.
Yeah,
So here's the scary thing: Chicago and Illinois, we haven't seen. If we think it's bad in 2020, 2021, 2022, I don't know that we've seen. It's like what there's an earthquake in the ocean, and a tsunami's coming, and it hasn't peaked yet, but it could be very, very scary.
Yeah.
And
I'm not trusting any politician to protect me.
right.
Not doing it.
No.
Not doing it.
So I'm going to say this. As Christians, even as pastors, the world puts us in a position. It's like, wait, you're pro-gun and you're pro-life? But I think when you analyze what is taking place, you see it's not so simple. Now, we don't worship guns,
No.
right? And
No.
if you're putting your trust in guns or thinking, all those things, I mean, there are errors in the pro-gun culture too, right, James? I mean,
Yes.
guns are not Jesus.
No.
So there is a error on the the pro-gun side also if you don't have your priorities straight, if your faith is not
Correct.
straight, then there is a problem there. But
Yes.
as you pointed out earlier, anybody who thought in terms of the United States, in part because of our history, that you could just start getting rid of the guns and you would reduce all the crime, that's Chicago every year they have a gun buyback program. I mean, they get a few old guns off the street and they give away some, I don't know, they give away some
Laughable.
gift card. I mean, it hasn't reduced the criminal element.
Not even a little bit.
Right. And
Not even
I believe, I don't know what percentage, but a pretty significant percentage of the violence is connected to the gangs, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And Chicago, because of its, I guess, its place as a central drug distribution site for the Midwest. The big cartels in Mexico, I think a lot of their drugs are brought up to Chicago and then somehow staged from there. I wish I knew more about that. Actually, I don't know if I do, but that is unless you start effectively really hammering after that, I don't think you're going to see a significant decrease in the murder rate in Chicago unless you somehow can really go after that element. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's evil men that are in charge, Calvin. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. Case in point, when tools are used to protect yourself, you still go to jail. What is that? It wasn't even a knife. I'm sorry, it wasn't even a gun. It was a knife, right? The famous case just recently in New York. They had stabbed the man. They came back. They were stabbing him. He took the knife and stabbed the guy in self-defense. The guy dies, and he goes to Rikers.
Mm.
That is that is a perfect example of what the reality is. They don't want good people to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. When things like this happen, and people say it doesn't make sense. No, it makes perfect sense if you understand what the true objective is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sad. It is sad, but Calvin, I just don't think we're in a good place in the United States of America. I hope this changes.
Well,
I hope
we
it changes.
are,
Look,
here's when you're under God's judgment, you know what? You can try to ban all the guns you want. You can
yeah,
it
yeah.
is a horrible horrible thing. And here's there are a lot of murders in the United States every year. You do the math. 6.5 per 100,000, or 6.3 per 100,000. You figure, okay, there's over 330 million in the United States. That's a lot of people who are murdered every year. The number of people now dying every year through drug overdose.
Yeah.
I think, James, that number
Yeah.
is probably over 12 per 100,000. I think it's double.
Yeah, I think
I believe.
it far outplaces the deaths by gun with the fentanyl and implosion in
Correct.
the country.
It
It
we're
is
on right. Now that doesn't get the attention, and I get that there are differences.
Yeah.
But we are a culture that has forsaken God, and we are under judgment in a variety of ways.
I believe that to be true. Yes.
So unless there is a turning to the Lord, you know what? No politician is going to solve this.
No.
And I do think politicians have to be careful whether they're on the right. Also, that they don't pretend like they're going to be messiahs, right? I'm going to say this: Donald Trump didn't necessarily lower the murder rate in Chicago either, right? I mean,
No,
right?
he didn't.
I mean,
He did not.
I don't know that it was in his power to do that, and I think there were people in Chicago that wouldn't have wanted his help, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think even when there were riots, remember, the mayor of Chicago would have rather Chicago burn.
Yeah. Oh, I believe. Yeah.
than to let Donald Trump come in and be a help.
Right. And in some cases they don't want federal help on some of these matters. And generally speaking, I think these are state and local crime issues. But when you're talking about these powerful cartels, to me, that's almost like an invasion.
Yeah.
And I think there's an appropriate place to bring in, some higher level of law enforcement to try to deal with some of that. Um, because, as I say, these cartel, I mean, r- you remember the scheme during, was it during, no, during Obama, where they
Mhm.
were giving guns to the cartels to supposedly track them. Remember that?
That was Eric Holder,
Yeah, right.
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious, right?
Um,
And that resulted in, I mean, some of those guns were used in murdering,
yeah,
people in, I'm sure, Chicago and other
yep,
big cities, right?
yep, yep,
Ah,
yep.
so they are aware of some of these issues, and the murder rate in Mexico is much higher than the U.S.
Well, they're bringing
Be,
Mexico here.
because of that, and those cartels, that they have almost no opposition in Mexico.
Yeah.
So in fact, if I had probably my way, I think there's a legitimate case you could make that, whether it's special forces working with perhaps with the Mexico military, should go after those cartels, to whatever degree you can.
Yeah, I
And
think there's a dirty little secret though
there's
that
money
those
making off on the side.
they're in some sense maybe one and the same, Calvin. I don't know, man. I
Well,
don't know.
there is, those cartels certainly in Mexico have bought off. Either they murder or buy off their opposition.
Yeah,
And they
it,
are.
it is it is dangerous. Yeah,
It is. Oh no, it's a wicked, and those people have no fear of anyone. It's I would say, James, it's demonic,
yes,
um, in
yes,
terms of its origin
easily,
there on that.
easily, easily,
So,
easily,
a
easily.
death cult aspect.
Yes,
In Mexico there is a death cult, basically a satanic worshiping death, and
yes.
oh, it's
I
some
agree.
it's some wicked things. Well, James,
Yeah.
last word on this.
It uh, again, Christians have to be very careful when they buy into arguments that remove the guilt of sinful behavior to the individual. Um, I've never seen a gun shoot anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard anyone claim that a gun has shot anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sinner using a gun in an
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate way that's caused harm. And
Yeah.
so Christians please don't fall for that. Um, uh, we know what truth is. We know what error is. We know what sin is, and
Right.
we have to be clear. We shouldn't fall. We shouldn't fall for the okey doke. We shouldn't fall for the red herring. No,
Yeah.
sin's the problem. Sin is the
Yeah.
problem, and Jesus Christ the Savior is the answer.
Amen. May the Lord have mercy on our state, on our nation.
We need it.
We do. Well, friends, thanks for joining us. We will see you very soon, hopefully next week at about this time. God bless.